here on Voice of the People 90.3 FM. This is World News. My name is Esther Wachuku. Here are the top stories. Police arrest 3 suspects, recover rustled cattle in Benue State. Also, federal government faces hit as more than 100 feared dead in Kwara massacre. In a very recent expose as well, terrorists said to be seen in the bush month before more than 170 killed. How security sources disclosed that the arrests were made after the divisional police officer DPO in Naka received credible intelligence around 3:30 p.m. on Tuesday from a local resident. According to the information, a group of youth believed to be from Agabe were reportedly seen moving suspected stolen cattle from Agabe toward Mbabiji, triggering fear and heightened tension amongst residents in the area. Acting swiftly on the report, the DPO deployed a combined team of police officers, detectives, and operatives of Operation Restore Peace to intercept the suspects. While in Kwara State, over 100 persons feared dead on Tuesday night following a deadly attack on Wuru and Nuku communities in Kayama local government area, Kwara State, by Islamic jihadists, while several people were also killed after the terrorists pounced on a Bande community in Imbayukio ward, Turangkwande local government area of Benue State. Governor Abdurrahman Abdurazak, however, confirmed the death of 75 persons. The governor disclosed the figure on Wednesday night while addressing residents at the palace of the Emir of Kayama, explaining that the victims were local Muslims massacred for refusing to surrender to extremists preaching a strange doctrine. He added that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has, however, approved the immediate deployment of an army battalion to the area to prosecute counter-offensives codenamed Operation Savannah Shield. Lakurawa, an armed group linked to the Islamic State Sahel province, is believed to have carried out the attack. The latest development has further put the federal government's security campaign under public scrutiny. The lawmaker representing the area in the House of Representatives, Mohammed Biu, also confirmed the attack that happened on Tuesday and also Wednesday morning. Biu said he was not sure of the fatality figures as of this time this report was being filed. However, he cited conflicting reports from the affected communities. Now, residents of Kayama local government area, Kwara State, accused Governor Abdurrahman Abdurazak's administration of ignoring repeated distress calls and security warnings months before Boko Haram-linked terrorists stormed the area, massacred no fewer than 170 people. Multiple residents who spoke to correspondents on the scene on Thursday said community members had consistently alerted traditional authorities, local government officials, and the state government about the suspicious movement of armed strangers and their presence in nearby forest, but no meaningful action was taken. According to 2 residents who spoke separately, youth in Kayama had raised the alarm on several occasions after noticing unfamiliar armed men camping in bushes surrounding their communities. Also, another resident confirmed that the warnings were escalated to state and local authorities but were largely ignored. The residents further disclosed that sometime around July or August in 2025, the communities became more alarmed when they noticed an increase in suspicious movement within the forest. According to the residents, the attackers later struck several villages in a coordinated operation, killing men, women and children while setting houses ablaze and forcing survivors to flee. Survivors said the attack lasted several hours unhindered, with no immediate intervention from security forces, leaving residents to fend for themselves. Houses were burned, families wiped out, and counts of dead bodies being still on the rise. On Wednesday evening, Governor Abdurrahman Abdurazak disclosed that no fewer than 75 local Muslims were brutally massacred in the community by the terrorists. He said the citizens were killed after they refused to surrender to terrorists who were preaching what he described as a strange and misguided doctrine. The governor made this known after arriving in Kayama alongside top service chiefs and members of his cabinet following a deadly attack that has plunged the community into mourning and fear. More than 160 worshippers abducted by terrorists Kurminwali village, Kajuru local government area of Kaduna State have been released. A competent source with knowledge of the developments surrounding the abduction confirmed today that the victims who were kidnapped in January 2026 have regained their freedom. As of the time this report was being filed, the freed worshippers were being evacuated to the Kaduna State Government House. Details surrounding the circumstances of their release remain sketchy, and obviously the situation is being monitored. In January, the terrorists who abducted no fewer than 166 worshippers in the Kajuri local government area of Kaduna State increased their ransom demand to 250 million naira and 20 motorcycles. The attack occurred on January 18, 2026, when gunmen invaded Kudumin Wale village during a religious gathering, abducting men, women, and youth indiscriminately. Residents of Kajuru local government area, located in southern Kaduna, have for years lived under the shadow of banditry and kidnapping, with communities frequently targeted for mass abductions, killings, and arson attacks that have displaced hundreds of families. The Independent National Electoral Commission has registered 2 new political parties, increasing the number of recognized political parties in Nigeria to 20. The electoral body disclosed that it received no fewer than 171 letters of intent from associations seeking registration as political parties. According to the Commission, the applications were assessed in line with sections 222 and 223 of the 1999 Constitution's meeting, with political party leaders insisting that the Commission cannot impose leadership on the party. The party spoke on a statement issued on Wednesday by its National Publicity Secretary, Comrade Ini Emenobong. The PDP said the INEC invitation was extended to individuals it described as former members of the party who are claiming to represent a National Caretaker Committee, a body the party says is unknown to its constitution. The party said INEC's action was capable of causing tension and a breach of peace, but stressed that it would be addressed through lawful means. Although it noted that the development was not unexpected, PDP expressed disappointment that the electoral body failed to take cognizance of pending cases before the Court of Appeal, including judgment being relied upon by the Commission, which could substantially affect the matter. PDP then urged its members nationwide to remain calm, assuring that the Court of Appeal would soon hear and determine all cases relating to the party's leadership. The African Democratic Congress Imo State chapter has raised an alarm over the tragic killing of its members. Speaking via a statement by its publicity secretary, MacDonald Amadi, the party expressed sorrow over the gruesome murder of its woman leader, Amusu Umululu Ward, Esther Chimeze Ijoma, and Ambrose Ndukwe, both indigents of Okigwe local government area. They were shot and killed on Friday, January 2026, Friday the 30th. The party said the heartbreaking incident represented yet another painful reminder of the persistent security challenges confronting Imo State. The party stated that the ADC believes that the foremost responsibility of any government is the protection of lives and property, adding that when citizens continue to fall victim to violent attacks, it raises serious concerns about the effectiveness, responsiveness, and prioritization of public safety measures. ADC demanded proactive leadership, clear strategies, and unwavering commitment. Meanwhile, the former presidential candidate of the Labour Party in 2023, Mr. Peter Obi, has reacted to the Senate's rejection of a bill seeking to make electronic transmission of election results compulsory. Well, the politician warned that the decision may deepen doubts about Nigeria's democratic future ahead of the 2027 general elections. Obi linked his reaction to the mood of national grief following the death of over 150 people in a recent tragedy in Kwara State, saying such moments should force leaders to reflect on governance and the value of human life. The former Anambra governor noted that the decision on election results came at a time when Nigerians are already questioning the direction of the country. According to him, the refusal to back electronic transmission weakens trust in the electoral process and opens the door to disputes and confusion that have followed past elections. He warned that resisting transparent processes only benefits a small group while harming the nation and its future generations. Obi stressed that leadership should focus on building a country where elections are clear, orderly, and trusted by the people. He also called on the international community to pay attention to actions that could threaten credible elections in the future. Also, Atiku Abubakar of the ADC as well has berated the federal government and the Nigerian National Assembly for not abiding with the Electoral Act. You're currently listening to the World News at 6 right here on Voice of the People, 90.3 FM. We will take a very short break. When we return, we'll head into our news analysis segment and obviously more news. Do kindly stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. This is still the world news right here on Voice of the People 90.3 FM. Meanwhile, the Senate Minority Caucus today insisted that the upper chamber of the National Assembly did not reject the electronic transmission of election results in the recently passed electoral acts, pushing back against widespread media reports suggesting otherwise. The clarification came a day after critics claimed that senators had removed provisions for electronic transmission of results and a 10-year ban on vote buying and other electoral offences from the bill. Barrister Fred Nzako, good evening, and thank you for joining me on the World News at 6. How are you, sir? Barrister Fred, can you hear me? Barrister Fred.
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, good evening, sir. How are you, sir?
I'm good, and you?
I'm fine, Barrister. Thank you so much for taking your time to attend to us. Yes, Barrister, very quickly, a couple of Nigerians feel low in spirit with the Electoral Act situation. I am sure we heard yesterday that election results will not be transmitted real time, and that a couple of analysts and a couple of civil society organizations who have been following the process all through with the Electoral Act amendment have been complaining about that development, saying that democracy may actually be termed to be dead. But the Senate Minority Caucus today insisted that the upper chamber of the National Assembly did not reject electronic transmission of election results in the recently passed Electoral Act. Apparently, Godswill Akpabio on Wednesday dismissed the reports as misleading, stressing that the chamber retained electronic transmission as provided under the 2022 Electoral Act to avoid legal and operational ambiguities. However, Eyinaya Baribe said the caucus was compelled to clear the misunderstanding following confusion over Wednesday's plenary. He said that the media has been awash with this report, but that it put the record straight. The Senate did not, I repeat, did not reject electronic transmission of results. He explained that the Senate approved real-time electronic transmission of results and that this was clarified on the floor by Akpabio. So, sir, how did it get twisted since yesterday that made a lot of Nigerians call out National Assembly, call out President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and say democracy is dead?
Esther, we cannot be confused with semantics. We are wordsmiths and we know how to manufacture words and give them meanings. It is a very simple thing. What Senate President Godswill Akpabio, the so-called clarification, exposed the inner workings of the Senate and simply endorses the fear of the Nigerian people. Where Akpabio said that they retained what was in the 2022 Electoral Amendment Act. And what was there? Yes, there is a provision in that act that INEC has the authority to issue guidelines as to how to conduct the election. And according to Akpabio, that there is a provision in that act where there is a provision for electronic transmission of results. Nigerians are saying it should not be left hanging to at the discretion of INEC. It should not be made a loose opinion or a loose policy or a kind of guideline. It must be made mandatory. The word mandatory is what Nigerians want. The word for mandatory means shall in law, in legal drafting. That INEC shall transmit result electronically, real-time online, or calling it in another way, that it is mandatory for INEC to transmit election results real-time online. Esther, what is difficult about these two provisions that I have mentioned? I have brought out the Electoral Act and I've been trying to browse through it. If I had gotten wind of of this question from you, I would have fastened the process so that I will go through from page 1 to the last page of the 2022 Electoral Act and be able to understand what Senator Akpabio is saying. But based on what the so-called clarification he gave on the floor, he says they retained that of 2022. Esther, what is in that of 2022? It was not mandatory. And that was why it was not mandatory. And that was why it was easy for the courts not to hold INEC accountable and responsible when they started talking about the so-called technical glitch.
Yeah.
And if it was made mandatory, it presupposes that any election result that was not transmitted real-time online will be cancelled. As simple as that. Any election result that is not transmitted will be cancelled. And what it means is that in case of transmission, the whole thing that is in the beavers will empty into the RF portal. There you will have the number of accredited voters, the number of registered voters, and then the results of the day, real-time online. So that as it is coming, even you sit down in your home or anywhere you are, with the tool of technology and be calculating your votes. Esther, we are in the age of artificial intelligence. We are in the age of technology. We are in the digital age where banks do multiple transfers real time online. Multiple. And you want to tell me one portal cannot handle that? Kenya, we cannot say we are not more endowed than Kenya. Kenya result is transmitted real time online, except where the president want to do a sit-tight syndrome. South Africa has not been doing that for the past 15 years, and it has been working well. If you search the countries around Africa, I'm talking about Africa, that do this, these are countries that are serious about democracy, not to talk of the rest of the world. I keep asking this question. Why would Nigeria intentionally want to remain in the dark ages? Meanwhile, everything, little children, when they want to write exam, they are made to write it digitally.
Yes.
To enter university, to write JAMB digitally. Little children. And something as serious and as sensitive as a leadership selection process of countries like Nigeria, you now begin to toy with it. They want to also return back to the dark stone age where they use manual collation, that where 40 can turn to 4,000. Where 40 can turn to 4,000 in a twinkle of an eye. So what kind of thing is this? Look, let me say this with all emphasis and without any fear of equivocation, that if National Assembly does not make this thing mandatory, I will urge political parties not to participate in 2027 election. And that will mean that it is the beginning of political crisis in Nigeria. Because we cannot continue to rub pepper in the eyes of Nigerian people. You will not allow them to decide their leadership. You will not present good governance to them. People are dying in droves, and you are just enjoying in your various locations as if the rest of Nigerians are on attachment in the country. A country that has over 200 million people, a few gang of so-called leaders will be sitting together and taking good care of themselves, and the rest of the people, look, we are not interested in who becomes what, but let the process be genuine. And now, let me even go direct. Why is APC afraid of mandatory transition of result? Today, APC has the majority in National Assembly. So if there is any infraction of the will of the people in National Assembly, I will hold APC responsible. They have the majority in the Senate, they have majority in the House of Reps, they have the majority in the Governors Forum. Almost 30 of the 36 governors in Nigeria are of APC stock. So that means, what it now means is that it is APC that does not want electronic transmission of result. It's as simple as that, because everything now snowballs down to politics. If we are talking about National Assembly, we are talking about the majority. Where does the majority stand? The majority stands against the will of the people. And let the people continue to advocate and continue to protest. The next thing now, you see people begin to protest physically and openly. Why would we allow such animalistic tendencies to continue to take place in an age where we should be thinking of development? Why would APC be afraid of their shadows? Nigerians should call them out, call out National Assembly, and they must make this thing mandatory. It has not been transmitted to Mr. President. It is still lying on the table of the clerk of National Assembly. It has not been transmitted to Mr. President. They should go back. It is just one paragraph. It does not even contain the whole paragraph. Just one sentence, and then we'll be good. Look at what happened with the tax reforms. Where up to today, it has not been settled. Whether what they promulgated was what Mr. President eventually signed. So what kind of country are we running? What kind of legacy are we leaving for our children? It If they don't want Nigeria to remain a country, let us sit down and restructure this country. Now you can go to your own zone and do whatever you like. If we want to remain one Nigeria, we must operate as a nation, as a country that is serious, and not from people just thinking that others are fools. Others are not fools, and by the time you continue to push them to the wall, I tell you, Nigerian people will bounce back and they will respond, and nobody, mark my word, will be happy with what is going on. 2027 is a watershed. Is either we get it right, or we know that we have intentionally destroyed our democracy. And I say this with all sense of responsibility, that National Assembly is setting the template for destruction of Nigerian democracy, and they will be held vicariously, individually, and collectively accountable and responsible for the damage and harm to Nigerian democracy if they do not allow this thing to stand or allow credible election to take place in 2027.
Barrister Fred Nzako, you've really spoken vehemently and spoken out. A couple of political analysts and even legal practitioners are actually very angry with the development, saying that the National Assembly do not represent Nigerians at all, that they're all there only for themselves. It's all about politics. They're not even concerned about what Nigerians are going through with the insecurity. Nobody's even setting up a committee to investigate the happenings, and it's quite a terrible situation that we have found ourselves in. But Barrister, Nigerians feel that the 2027 elections is where they can speak, where nobody can hold their lips shut. This time around, they can decide that, okay, we want true leadership and true representation, and regardless of how a couple of people feel with this current administration. And like you said, they're asking for a due process, a transparent process, and it may seem that they may not get that if things are not done as soon as possible the proper way. So let's move on to Kwara State. Apparently, before what happened on Tuesday night/Wednesday morning, 5 months ago, those terrorists wrote a letter to the community members telling them that they would actually come to attack and that they were going to come and start up a radical preaching. They had been coming to the community, settling in the bush. They had approached the emir, and the emir had told them no. They decided as well to continue forcefully educating the people about a radicalization system or a doctrine that was strange to what Islam teaches. That's what the governor of the state is actually saying. Barrister, more than 170 persons were slaughtered. They didn't do anything. They were just slaughtered for no reason. The president has consent that a conscription of military personnel be stationed there. But before what happened, there were military men along that axis. They left because nothing had happened. How do you describe the situation where these terrorists are already heading down south?
Esther, it is a very terrible development and a very fearful one that lives are lost in this country in a manner that is beyond human comprehension. And when the people say, allow us to choose our leaders who will be passionate, who will show empathy, and who will think about the welfare and lives of the people, you will say not allow them. You say not allow them. And what has been happening is because the government has lacked the will to fight terrorism in Nigeria. They started by nicknaming terrorists as bandits. They now went ahead to even begin to manipulate the system and pay people to lobby America to see Nigeria as a good nation where there is no particular concern, a country that is seriously of particular concern. In fact, it has gone beyond. It is now a country of grave concern, not just particular concern, but grave concern. Country of grave concern, CGC, that is what Nigeria is. And at the end of the day, lives are lost, and government will pretend as if nothing is going on. The information you now get from the leaders will just be to wish people happy birthday on pages of this paper. Whereas over almost 200 lives were lost in one fell swoop. The information we got is that the attack even was in 2 tranches. They came, hit the people at the first time, left. While the people were same morning, they came a second time, and the death toll increased. The death toll from independent sources shows that over 200 people lost their lives in that community in Kwara State. So there is Kwara. And then they hit. They go back to the Kainji forest in Niger State, meaning that the whole of that axis, not central, is not safe. Kwara is next to Oyo State. There is now panic in Oyo because when the nose bleeds, the eye cries. When the nose bleeds, the eye cries. With what is going on in Kwara State, the people that are very close to Kwara are now unsettled. How can Nigerians be sleeping with one eye open in their whole country? How can Nigerians not be certain of their life and their livelihood? And it's not as if they are enjoying life. In the midst of suffering, their security is not assured. So what is the essence of government in Nigeria? Just tell me, what is the meaning of that word government in this country? When everything that they should be doing under the social contract theory is abdicated, abandoned, neglected, and nothing is happening. The people are suffering, the people are dying. It is you don't control population by allowing people to be killed, because the agony of such death is anti-human and unnatural. If you want to, even if Nigeria, and you want to control Nigerian population, how do other countries control their own population? Today, China is over 1.6 billion people. India is over 1.4 billion. How many are we here? Just 220 something million. And we can't take care of ourselves. We cannot even secure our boundaries, our territories. And we cannot even ask for help from other places. When the terrorists themselves are getting help from their co-criminals all around the world. So why won't government get help from their fellow sovereign nations all around the world as well? What is going on in Nigeria? It is becoming extremely worrisome.
I'm telling you, Barrister.
Extremely worrisome. Meanwhile, as that one was happening in Kwara, about 40 or 20 people lost their lives in Kaduna.
In Kaduna. And another one happened also in Benue.
So, which day, just tell me, in the past 10 years, which day would you wake up and you will not hear news of death, of destruction, of insecurity, news that touch the heart? So what kind of country are we running? Now, even the least thing you will allow the people to do, which is allow them to decide who will lead them, you will not allow them. Oh no, you can't continue like this. Honestly, you cannot.
So what should happen? The opposition parties are just writing. Atiku Abubakar wrote earlier today of the ADC, wrote earlier today against it. Mr. Peter Obi tweeted about it. Everyone is saying, why can't Nigerians protest? Where are opposition political parties? None of them are coming on a protest. None of them are having to advocate for any protest. They've only written, to contest what the National Assembly did. So, do we have spineless opposition members? Do we have opposition members that do not understand what it is to play politics? In 2012/2013, the All Progressives Congress did not let the PDP breathe. Jonathan was on a hot seat. There was either a protest every day, they were tweeting, they really kept Jonathan on their toes. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu staged a protest, organized a protest in Lagos and other states, the Occupy Nigeria protest. Most of the members in the ADC were part of that protest. Chief John Oyegun and a couple of members, they were in that protest against Jonathan. They created a coffin, they put it out there, and it was massive. Fuel subsidy that Jonathan wanted to remove, eventually because of the protest, it wasn't removed. They used insecurity to topple Jonathan's government and create a sense of apathy against his administration. So what is happening with the opposition now? They are not speaking, they are not criticizing appropriately, they are mum. So what exactly happened?
Esther, anybody who expects others to protest is wasting his or her time. This protest is a national protest, and everybody should protest at his own corner and at his own level. But the dangerous and terrible thing about it is that Nigerians are so badly divided along tribal and religious lines, more than ever before. In the past, you could see division based on principles and policies, based on general suffering of the land. Today, even the man who is suffering will not want to say anything against his brother who is in government and enjoying on his behalf. The Stockholm syndrome in Nigeria today is so much that a lot of Nigerian people are in love with their oppressors, provided the oppressors are of their ethnic group or their religious inclination. They don't mind. Even when they are dying of hunger, dying of deprivation, dying of insecurity, dying of starvation, and dying of lack of welfare. Instead, today, our doctors are still on strike for months going, and nobody's talking about it. We won't be telling anybody who falls sick and goes to a public health facility, the person will automatically be sent to the world beyond. Is that how to run a country? And at the end of the day, oh, you are not interested that there is no facility for you. You are more interested, oh, my brother is enjoying on my behalf. I don't know who bewitched Nigeria. This thing called religion and tribalism has been a very big problem. But I tell you, Esther, that mass anger builds gradually. And it is building. When it gets to the crescendo, look, nobody will be spared. Nobody. It will be a case of free for all. There will be fire on the mountain. Run, run, run. And Nigeria is gradually building up to that. But what is worrisome is that how can leaders who know how best things are done all around the world come to Nigeria and want to subjugate the people and turn Nigeria's progress upside down? When somebody is given authority to lead, the mantle of leadership, you see what is right, you avoid it. So if they are waiting, there will be protests, and protests cannot come in any definite direction. Meanwhile, the master of protest planning and execution, they are the ones that are in government today. And what the government in power is doing is that if they see that you have the opportunity of organizing protests, they will bring you in. Otherwise, why are governors all rushing into APC? Why are they rushing to APC? APC that has some of them described as cancerous. Now they are going into the cancer to envelope them. So something must be wrong somewhere. But I tell you that the people of Nigeria, they have a day, they have a year with their destiny in 2027. There are many ways of protesting. If they don't come out to vote, if the political parties don't take part in the election, if they really mean it, they don't take part. Because if there is no electronic transmission of results, I tell you there is no need for anybody to take part in that election. Unless you are running under the banner of the ruling party that is manipulating all these shenanigans. Otherwise, you want to have a change, then it's only through electronic transmission, which will limit the spate of manipulation. I know that even as Nigerians are talking, they will be planning on how to subvert that process. They will be looking for the kind of glitch that is unimaginable that they will drop on the system next year. But at least let the optics be right and let people have confidence that their votes will count. Otherwise, what is the essence of our democracy? It's just a mockery. It's just a mockery.
All right, Barrister, very quickly, please. In compliance with a recent judgment of the Federal High Court, INEC has recognized a faction of the People's Democratic Party led by Abdurrahman Mohammed. Mohammed's National Caretaker Committee is backed by the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike. Now, you remember that the faction led by Barrister Tanimu Tureki was recently sacked by the Federal High Court in Ibadan, Oyo State. So INEC's compliance with the court order became a public knowledge following the decision of the electoral body to extend invitation to the Wike faction to attend the commission's first regular consultative meeting with political parties for 2026 held on Thursday in Abuja. This means that the Ondo State Governor, right, Mr. Makinde, obviously their convention that was recently held, and their faction of the PDP is not recognized That the one now that INEC recognizes is a faction that Wike is actually backing. Samuel Anyanwu, the disputed publicity secretary, has said that by Monday they are going back to occupy the PDP office. Now, there have been complaints and accusations at the FCT minister that because his wife is one of the appellate judges and his connection with judges, that he has mutilated the judicial process with his connection. They brought out videos recently of one of the judges, right? I think of the appeal court, who were they were begging him for lands or whatever in Abuja and thanking him for some of the efforts he has made in, the housing allowances and all of that, building houses for them very recently. People are really to they're bringing conjectures and evidence to prove that this whole thing is politically motivated and the judgment was not objective or sincere. Well, how would you describe the situation now? How would you describe this directive?
Is that on a wider scale, when you look at issues and problems, you look at the foundations of such issues and such problems. The foundation of all these things you're seeing is because Nigeria is not working. It's as simple as that. Total, complete system failure at the level of the judiciary, at the level of the executive, at the level of the legislature, and at the level of the citizenship. The country is not working. Now, what I expect leaders to do, and when I mean leaders, I don't mean only political leaders. Leaders of all sorts, market leaders, religious leaders, academic leaders, political leaders, anybody in leadership position, sit down and let us discuss this country. Until this country is restructured, I've been saying this since year 2000. That Nigeria will not make progress unless it is restructured. And instead of making progress, it is getting worse. Getting worse by the day. Nigeria decays by the decade. Every succeeding decade is worse than the previous one. Whereas in other countries, every succeeding decade is an improvement on the previous one. The slight improvement you see, improvements in other countries, that because the world is a global village, you now see the impact here. Oh, we are using GSM. You call it improvement. What component of that GSM is made in Nigeria? What else? Oh, we are using cars, all manner of flashy cars. What part of that car is made in Nigeria? Even the tires now, ordinary tires that we used to have the tire companies, where are they today? Begin from the headlamp to the boot. What component of any car is made in Nigeria? The factories you have are mere assembly plants. They bring in CKD parts and they knock them together. Nigeria is one big country that does not even manufacture a bicycle. There's no bicycle made in Nigeria. No tricycle made in Nigeria, in a population of over 230 million people. A population that is labor intensive, manufactures nothing. Why is it so? Because there is no Nigerian in Nigeria. There's no Nigerian in Nigeria. What you have are, you have Igbo man, you have Hausa man, you have Yoruba man, you have Tiv, you have Fulani. You don't have a Nigerian in Nigeria. And until we restructure this country, so that at the level of our zonal level, there will be development. And let me see whether the man in North Central will come and tell the man in the Southeast how to run his life, how to run his zone. And that is the juice of true fiscal federalism, and that is the bulwark of the American system of government that we have borrowed. What we are doing is we are a confused nation that is doing an admixture of military, parliamentary, presidential, and the crude voodoo traditional system of government, all mixed up in a confused entity called Nigeria, with Abuja as the so-called center of unity being the center of confusion and corruption. I tell you that until we restructure this country, all these fundamental problems that you're seeing cannot be solved. From education to health to insecurity to all manner of problems. Nigeria is not working, and Nigeria cannot work the way it is structured unless it is restructured.
All right, Barrister Fred Nzako, I sincerely do appreciate you. Thank you so much for giving us your time and giving your perspective on some of the stories read out on the World News at 6.
Many thanks, Esther.
All right, thank you, Barrister Fred. Barrister Fred is a political, national, and social affairs commentator. Now, before we go, let's look at stories outside the shores of Nigeria. Ukraine and Russia have conducted a rare exchange of prisoners of war and civilians after 2 days of U.S. brokered peace deals in Abu Dhabi. A total of 157 Ukrainians, 7 of them civilians, and 157 Russian soldiers were returned home in the first such swap in 4 months. Russian, Ukrainian, and U.S. teams took part in the talks in the capital of the United Arab Emirates, with the main sticking points believed to be territorial concessions. Ukraine is under pressure to make and security guarantees for it to prevent further Russian attacks if a deal is agreed to end the 4-year war. No breakthrough has been reported so far. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said the talks has not been easy and that he actually wants faster results. Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. Zelensky wrote that on Thursday the prisoner exchange took place after a long pause, referring to the previous of such swap last October. Well, Ukrainian officials said 139 had been in Russian captivity since 2022. Meanwhile, the Russian Defense Ministry said 157 of its POWs were returned by Kiev. That's a wrap on the world news. My name is Esther Wachuku. Good evening and thank you for staying with us. Up next is the Evening Rush.